This isn't just another sentencing hearing. It's a case that forces the court to weigh serious felony burglaries against the possibility of genuine rehabilitation. Stephanie Ochterling stands before Judge Melissa R. Mogen after spending near
We will go on the record in the matter 25 CF 42, State of Wisconsin versus Stephanie Achterling. The state appears through District Attorney Kevin Schmidt in person. Ms. Achterling appears in person with counsel Shirlene Perrin. We're set here today in this matter for the sentencing portion of the case. The court did order a pre-sentence investigation report. The court has received that report. I have reviewed that report. The court also received an independent assessment from Independent Assessment Services, an alternate pre-sentence investigation report. The court has also reviewed that report. Victims' rights compliance.
We are.
Any victims going to be making a statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll get to that momentarily. Mr. Schmidt, have you received and reviewed both of the pre-sentence investigation reports?
I received it, I reviewed it, I have no corrections.
All right, Ms. Perrin, did you receive the PSI
Yes.
from the DOC and any corrections or modifications for the record?
No.
Did you review it thoroughly with your client, Ms. Achterling?
Yes.
And she did not notice any corrections or any modifications for the record?
No.
She is currently in custody for the sentencing with you. We have one victim impact statement. I'm going to request that the victim please come forward and sit on the black, by the black table. You can either state your name for the record or you can state your initials, whatever you prefer.
My name is Mike McManus.
Can you spell McManus, please?
MC capital MANUS.
Thank you. You may begin.
First off, thank you for the opportunity to speak here. This is a case that's gone on quite a while. And I just feel like my property, my life, everything was violated. You came into my property, you took stuff that didn't belong to you and sold it for pennies on the dollar. You took sentimental things from me that I can't replace. You put a huge financial burden on me personally. You took a lot of things that were worth a lot of money. I had a outboard motor that I learned to operate a boat with. And to you, it was just an outboard motor. To me, it meant everything. My dad taught me how to use it, how to operate a boat safely. And you don't know this, but I spent the summer prior to that rebuilding that thing from the ground up. Brand new. And I was looking forward to using it the following summer. And I was notified that my stuff had been taken. I was a snowbird. I was in South Carolina at the time when you guys decided to take everything. And it hit me hard. And it really hit me hard when I got back up here for the summer. Damage to my camper, damage to my door, everything. I couldn't hire a moving company to do a better job than you guys did. You had to have made more than one trip, guaranteed. It just violated everything. And now I built a new house on that property, and it has a security system that I pay $45 a month for now. I never thought I'd need that here. This is the third time since my parents bought that property in '76. We've been burglarized twice prior, and I've also had theft from my vehicle on my property. I don't understand how it just keeps happening, and it's got to stop. I honestly believe that they need to be removed from our society for a little bit longer than what was presented, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Schmidt, argument and sentencing recommendation, please.
Thank you. My argument to the court is going to be that the court should follow the Department of Corrections recommendation, which is 5 years probation on the burglaries, 1 year probation on the thefts, withheld sentences on the thefts, state and imposed sentences on the burglaries of 4 in, 2 out, everything concurrent to each other. So from the PSI, we see that this is a person with no criminal history. She says she's been using methamphetamine from age 15 to present, which indicates she's one of those rare individuals we see occasionally come through the court where methamphetamine has not in and of itself caused criminal convictions while they were using it up until much later in their life. She went and did some college and reportedly did well in the PSI. She then worked consistently from ages 21 to 31. She became unemployed at age 31 during COVID and never went back to work. She was a dental implant technician. For the past 5 years, even from the PSI, it's been a real question what she's been doing to subsist and how she survived. With her training experience she had, it's kind of hard to believe she couldn't have started up work again once COVID was over. Her job wasn't like a restaurant job where a lot of positions went away permanently. I actually have a lot of cousins who do similar work that work stayed through COVID. Despite her saying she's been using methamphetamine for 21 years and drinking so much alcohol she blacks out, she questioned in the PSI whether treatment would benefit her. She said she might benefit instead from therapy. I suspect maybe what she's getting at there is she doesn't think she needs inpatient treatment, but would benefit from maybe something outpatient. That or she's talking about just therapy related to mental health. It's hard to say. At some point, this person started dating a man named Robert English. Robert English had a prior conviction involving receiving stolen property, where he was found with some burglarized property, and he said Kenneth Ochterling did a burglary and gave it to him. Kenneth said, no, I didn't. So Robert English got convicted of receiving stolen property. It was another case in roughly the same area. She says together, she and Robert English, I do appreciate in the pre-sentence investigation report, she talked about what they were doing, that they were just looking at nearby cabins, seeing which ones had the signs that this is snowbirds, this is people who aren't in their cabins all year long, and picked those to burglarize. She admitted that Robert was out doing that, admitted she went out and did the burglaries with him. She says while she was doing this, she claims she was high in methamphetamine and blackout drunk on vodka. She did admit to having multiple victims in this case. As a result, she spent 339 days in jail so far, starting on April 4th to present. This is her first run-in with the criminal justice system. Her DNA was found at 3 of the scenes. Property from 4 of the burglaries was found in that room she shared with Robert English at his mother's house. All of the burglaries were local. They're all within a close proximity to that location. And this is consistent with what she told the PSI writer with how they were picking targets and what they were doing. I think DOC is correct in that I think she is a low risk to reoffend if and only if the following 3 conditions are met. And this is why I think they said probation. 1, and this is the most important one, no contact with Robert English. I don't think this happens, or at least she's not involved with this if she doesn't meet Robert English. 2, AODA conditions. She talks about how the methamphetamine use and the getting blackout drunk tied into this decision making. No doubt it's tied into her decisions to associate with people like Robert English. 3rd, and this also I would say this might be even more important than the drug addiction one, given what she described with using since she was 15, work. She needs to get back to work. I don't think we can say it's a coincidence that she went to age 31 working, and then 5 years after that, she stops working. Well, 3 to 4 years after she stops working is when these happen, because these happened in 2024. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think if she's working and she isn't associating with people like Robert English and she's not using, this doesn't happen. We get people like Stephanie Ochterling occasionally on these PSIs, and it's always disappointing when we do. These people where they're educated, they have good work history, and then suddenly at some point in their 30s, they suddenly stop working, they stop associating with the social connections they had prior, and they just kind of break bad, they start using drugs, and they commit crimes. These are the people that have high rehabilitative potential. You stand in stark contrast to the cases we have where, we have somebody who is 40 or 50 and they have 5 years work experience at most to their name, where we know even if they weren't convicted during the time, we know how they were subsisting and how they were surviving. Stephanie Ochterling's obviously not one of those people. She has potential for being rehabilitated. So the way that ties in with how the court has to look at sentencing, it first has to look at probation, unless a probation would unduly depreciate the seriousness of the offense. If Miss Ochterling pled out on day one and came here and said, give me probation, it would have depreciated the seriousness of the offense. What makes it not do that here is that she has 339 days credit. She's been in jail for a whole year, and that's been front loaded in this case. That is why probation does not unduly depreciate the seriousness of the offense in this case, because it's not just 1 year probation, it's more than a year county jail if you count good time. What does get us to the state imposed prison sentence on this, though, is the gravity of the offense in this case. This is her first offense. This is her first conviction. Studies, when you look at recidivism, say the predictive factors for whether or not someone's likely to reoffend in the future, the two biggest things are your age and what your prior history is. And prior history is really in her favor. That's why Compass says low risk to reoffend. You don't need Compass to know that. In this case, however, you can look at it on the one hand and look at the time frame of where these happen and say this is one streak of behavior, it's one pattern of behavior, and look at it from that way and come to one sort of analysis. A way that I think you have to not depreciate the seriousness of it is more than that. It was multiple victims. And when you break down the behavior, I probably think about this more than, say, a judge might. When someone does a burglary, it's not just one discrete act. You can't just wave it away and say, I was on methamphetamine, I was blackout drunk, we went and did the burglary, that was bad, I'm sorry for that. Because it's more than that when you do a burglary. So doing a burglary necessarily requires a whole lot of complex decision-making and logic and actions over a long period of time, because you need to make the decision you're going to do it. You need to find the targets that are soft that you could hit, pick a time to do it. You go and do it. Like Mr. McManus said, the nature of a lot of the property here, not just at his, but a lot of these, with the volume and the weight of some of the items, it would have took multiple trips or multiple people. So then you've taken the property. So then that part's done. After that is the part of, what do I do with it? Where do I put it? You have to necessarily think about those things. You have to think about which things do we like, do we keep, which things are able to sell, how do you sell this sort of item, how do you sell that sort of item. Selling and getting money for these things can involve a lot of different contexts over a long period of time. What I'm trying to get at is, anytime you have a burglary, every single case, it also necessarily includes criminal thinking, because there has to be complex reasoning and logic in how you dispose of the property, how you pick it, all of the behaviors that go into the action. So that is something important too, as well as a condition of probation. I think every single burglary case needs one of those conditions for, like, the thinking for a change, moral recognition type treatment, something to deal with the cognition, because that problem exists in every single one of these. And it also shows why burglaries need to have, like, that state and imposed prison sentence here that DOC recommends. that 6-year 4 in 2 out sentence is important. I think with Stephanie Ochterling, it's likely to be a pretty effective deterrent. This is a person who today is 36 years old. She just spent a year in jail. It's all the jail she's ever done in her life. And now the court's saying to her, if you do it again, or you do even something lesser that gets you revoked, you're looking at 4 years in prison. I think we know that with first-time offenders, people who are not frequent consumers of the criminal justice system, those kinds of deterrents are very effective. So I'd ask the court to follow that argument. I think it's the best way to make sure this doesn't happen again. I think with the year jail and with the state-imposed prison sentence, the offense is not depreciated. I think the court has meted out the big sentence that was already necessary on the person who obviously masterminded this with Robert English when it did the prison sentence consecutive to his revoked receiving stolen property sentence. I think the 339 days she's already sat now and the state imposed prison sentence accomplish the same objectives here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Heron.
Thank you. We do have one person who wants to make a statement. That would be Pastor Goodwin.
Very briefly, you can come up here and provide a statement.
Thank you. I'll just read this. I'm Pastor Goodwin, Ekdal Community Church in Grantsburg. And I wrote this letter to submit this, but the attorney asked me to read it. So it's this letter is regarding Stephanie Achterling, incarcerated at Burnett County Jail. And it's about my interaction with her. I have been meeting with her one-on-one weekly for the past 6 months. I've noticed a real sense of contrition and desire to make real changes in her life. I've had Bible study and prayer time with Stephanie each visit. She acknowledges that God's providence has her here because of her own actions and blames no one else. She has no church or religious background in her life, but has really responded to what the Lord has been teaching her through Bible study and religious services here in the county jail. And so I just give my opinion of her is the thought of her recommitting any of these crimes. Just she's come to be like a new person. She's very intelligent, and I would recommend that probation would be warranted. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, I have some certificates and another letter. Should I give them to the
You
clerk?
can just give them to me.
Okay.
Thank you. I've read the letter from Pastor Cecilia Pardon. All right, I have reviewed all of the certificates. There are many.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the defense is recommending the recommendations from the alternative pre-sentence report, which is 3 years probation, a withheld sentence and 3 years probation on counts 2 and 11, 18 months probation and withheld sentence on counts 2 and 35, all to run concurrent. The convictions, particularly on the burglaries, are on serious offenses. The defense generally agrees with the arguments of the state. I'm not going to repeat generally the statements made by Mr. Schmidt. I wanted to highlight some things about Ms. Achterling from both PSIs. I noted a few things that she kind of did in both PSIs. She talked about her childhood as being basically a happy childhood. Sounds like there were some challenges, but she characterized that childhood as happy. She spoke about some rough times in that relationship with Mr. English that included some abuse from him, some substance abuse. But interestingly, she didn't blame her behavior on anybody. I think that speaks to her ability to correct her behavior, as Mr. Schmidt alluded to in his argument. So I would ask the court to consideration. She recognized the harm that she has done. She understands what, and has come to understand more and more throughout time that she has spent in custody, the harm that has been done to the victims. And one of the things that could also be done during a term of probation is some kind of community service, in addition to other things like therapy. It would seem that also based on the pre-sentence investigation and the alternative report, that there is some level, I'm not a therapist, but also it seems like there's a theme of kind of codependency in her life, first with her brother, then with Mr. English. And again, she is not blaming them on her, she's not blaming them for her behavior. But there does seem to be a pattern in her life, and she's choosing people to be around with. But that may also assist her in the future, for her to stand up more for herself, for her to have the self-esteem to continue with her education and to be more successful in her life. Because of her lack of prior history, because of her prior success in life, her lack of blame of others, her acknowledgement of the seriousness of what she's done, her potential for correcting her behavior, we do ask the court to withhold sentence and place her on probation. I understand the state's perspective on the imposed and stayed sentence. However, there are also reasons for the court to withhold sentence and have some measure of an ability to impose a sentence when the time comes if there is a revocation. I'm optimistic that Ms. Achterling would not be would not be in that situation based on getting to know her over the last year. I can't imagine that would happen. I'm very optimistic for her and hope the court will adopt one of the recommendations here today. And I believe she has a statement she wants to make.
All right. Ms. Achterling, if you're going to read a statement, please make sure that you can read it slowly and enunciate your words so that both myself as well as my court reporter can hear and understand, okay?
Okay. Your Honor, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I know how it feels to lose something that cannot be replaced. And I know that knowing that I caused the same hurt to another person and their family and how it affected them and their family deeply breaks my heart. Nobody deserves to go through that kind of pain. I understand that saying I'm sorry doesn't make up for the peace and security the victims once had. My actions were unexcusable, and I deeply and truly apologize from the depths of my heart. Before coming in here, I was going down a destructive path, and being brought in here has saved my life and forever changed my life. While being in here, I've attended all the groups that were offered to me, which has given me the tools necessary for a better future. Because of the situation, it brought me to God and to accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, who has given me a new positive and healthy outlook on how I want to live my life. With that being said, I want to thank you for saving my life. I plan on finding a church in my community if given the opportunity to return home. I want to continue on the right path with God on my side and following the guidelines and help given by probation. And I'll continue to maintain my sobriety through finding support groups in my community. I also want to get stable employment and continue to improve my life. I'm committed to following all the court requirements. Your Honor, I respectfully ask the court to consider my efforts to take responsibility in the changes I've made and will continue to make while determining my sentence. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Thank you.
Ms. Achterling, I have heard the arguments of both attorneys. I've heard a character reference for you.